Acknowledge Paul Oberneufermann, who's the Regional Honorary Consul of the Federal Republic of Germany, sitting in the back. Ulrika Schlafly, founder and director of the St. Louis Eric M. Warburg Chapter of the American Council on Germany. Thank you for being here. She's with her distinguished husband as well, but we'll mention him later. He's a mere beer baron with a law degree. In attendance, we also have Mark Van Acht, who is the Honorary Consul of Belgium in Missouri. He's in the back. So with no further ado, I turn our program over to Dennis, who will introduce Dr. Boeckle and serve as the moderator. Dr. Boeckle will speak briefly, and Dennis will facilitate questions and answers. And I'll speak briefly afterwards, but believe me, that'll be a minute and a half, and then we can go to libations. And I'll let you know if it's still nice outside, we can look at this view, but we can walk across the reception area, and there's an open balcony where we can congregate as well, if it's warm enough. So on with the show, please.
Well, thank you very much. Pierce, thank you for your hospitality. It's a beautiful facility here. We're very honored to be in Powers Insurance, and we thank you for your hospitality, you and your wife, Sue. Thank you very much. Party, so nice to see you again. We happened to run into each other this week earlier in Washington, D.C., and so it's a pleasure to have you here with us tonight. We're going to have just a guided conversation, and then we'll open it up for questions and answers at the end. But I hope you have felt at home here in St. Louis. There's a lot of rich German heritage here from the 1840s on. We've been blessed with a great wave of German immigration and German entrepreneurs and great German business leaders like Anheuser-Busch. And so we're very pleased to have you join that long heritage of German immigration to Missouri. So welcome to St. Louis.
Thank you very much, Mr. President. Dennis,
yes.
It's really a great pleasure. It's really a great pleasure for me to be here in St. Louis. It's my first time I'm here, and I'm amazed how international and how outward-looking this city is. Yeah, and I'm really proud to feel the German heritage here. So thank you very much to World Affairs Council, to all of you, to share a moment with me. I also want to benefit a little bit of your experiences here. I'm a newcomer in the United States. I'm here for 1 year only in the German embassy as head of the Economic, Finance and Trade Department. It's a very interesting job, and one of my primary tasks is to go out and have a look, have a talk with people, see how do they live, how do they relate with Germany, yeah, how interested are they in our culture, in our business, in our economics. And that's the reason why I'm here tonight. So thank you very much.
Well, you will be challenged to find a state or city that welcomes German investment more than St. Louis or Missouri because of our heritage with you and our past experience, very positive relationship with Germany, and so we're glad that you can continue that tradition with us this evening. Tell us a little bit about yourself, your personal background. What part of Germany are you from? What did you study before you became a diplomat?
Yeah, I'm from Stuttgart.
Our sister city, yes.
Yes, sister city of St. Louis.
Yes,
no?
yes.
Isn't it a nice coincidence? Yeah, I'm from Stuttgart. Little bit in the south of Stuttgart, a small city called Albstadt, and Frau Kurz knows it very well. No? It's in fact more or less in the neighborhood where she comes from, and we share the same dialect.
Oh, good.
Yeah. So I studied economics in Mannheim and in Cologne. Mm-hmm. I have been working in the Institute for Economic Research in Cologne. It's a quite important research institute where I could apply what I have learned at the university. I was working on numbers and on trends, and it was an interesting time. And then I decided, well, I oriented always my studies towards international relations. Mm-hmm. I did part of my studies in France, in Montpellier. Mm-hmm. I did a traineeship in Africa and in Buenos Aires with Deutsche Bank. And I was looking for a job which will allow me to look outside Germany, to work on the bilateral relations. And then I was between banking and diplomacy, and as I didn't know diplomacy, I decided to go for that. I joined the German Foreign Office, and I have to say I didn't regret it.
Oh.
I had basically two pillars in my career. One pillar is the European affairs. My wife and I, we spent postings in Paris and in Brussels. I was working in the Chancellor's office in Berlin, still on European affairs, and it was during the financial crisis where I accompanied Federal Chancellor Merkel to Brussels, and we had night meetings, and we joined in the early morning. We joined the press conference. I was the spokesperson at that time in the German Perm Rep in Brussels, and it was really very exciting time. And my second pillar is China. My wife and I, we spent 7 years in Beijing, working on economic relations, on business relations, and I have to say China is extremely interesting country, extremely interesting. It's extremely important for German companies. Maybe we can come later on that topic, because it can be problematic to be so highly dependent on one country. We might come to this topic later. So it was a very, very, very important relationship, business relationship Germany has with China, and still has today. And when you live there, every day you feel something new is happening. Every day, any moment, there's something you don't understand. And then sometimes you get the feeling, oh, they understand me, they know what I want to say, nah? And it turns out differently. So we had a really wonderful time. Two of our children are born in Brussels. Our elder daughter is born in Paris. And now the third pillar, of course, will be the United States in my career, and the relations we have over the transatlantic.
Oh, great. Well, your approach seems to be a little bit unique, correct, to the Foreign Service. Is that the standard approach, to go through the banking system first, or how do most people enter the German Foreign Service?
There is no general rule. In fact, the German Foreign Office hires people that are outbound oriented, and have different expertise. Of course, we have a lot of lawyers, because we need the international law, but we have also a lot of economists, even we have technicians, because the world today is very much technological, digitalized. So in fact, we have all kind of experts we need. And in the beginning, you will start with general postings, 2-3 postings. Now we do a little bit of everything. European affairs in my case, and China affairs, Chancellor's office, and then you specialize a little bit. And my specialization is economics and business relationship.
Yeah, let's dive in a little bit. You're the head of finance and economics here in the United States for the Federal Republic of Germany. What does that job entail? What's a typical week or month for you? I know it's challenging to have a typical month, but what's a standard responsibilities for your office as head of economics?
Look, at the moment, of course, there is the main task between Germany and the United States is on agreeing on a common package of sanctions.
For Russia right now.
For Russia.
Right.
Yeah.
Maybe pre-Ukraine, how was your job? Maybe we'll get to Ukraine, but pre-Ukraine, what was life like for you?
Pre-Ukraine, we have in our relations, in our bilateral relations, we have some formats and institutions. Mm-hmm. Because we say, whenever there is a change of government, either in Germany to the opposition party, as it has happened now, or in the United States, from Trump to Biden, the relations should continue to be workable. Mm-hmm. And how do we achieve that? We achieve that by institutions and formats of corporations.
Okay.
For example, in my department, I have colleagues who care about the science, cooperation in the area of science, research, and development. And in this area is, in fact, not so politicized. So we have the institution of yearly negotiations on how do we cooperate in the area of science, research, development, what can we do together. And we will have next week, on the 11th of April, we will have a delegation from Germany, experts who cooperate with NASA on projects concerning satellites. Satellites to observe the climate, to observe the environment. And this is an intensive cooperation which is institutionalized. And this is a basis for our cooperation, which will work whatever government shifts we live. And we have this kind of institutions, we try to establish it in several areas. We have it in the field of energy and climate. We have it on European level in the field of technology, digital services, and trade with working groups. And we have it in the economic area, what we call an economic dialogue, which will take now with Mr. Kukis, the State Secretary in the Federal Chancellor's Office, and where we discuss G7 topics, of course at the moment the sanctions, but also bilateral business relations.
Do you have flexibility in this position to bring in your own personal goals in this relationship with the United States from an economic perspective, or are you tasked with implementing policies from others, or how do you prioritize your work and your goals for your position?
Of course, you arrive here and you find already a lot of things going on. And the business, in companies, and the bilateral relations between the ministries, and so you get started in just where do we stand here, where do we stand there, and you continue turning the wheel.
Keep the momentum going.
Keep the momentum going. Keep the machine running. And sometimes you put some oil here or there. You have a contact here or there. Just keep the machine running.
How many people are on your team?
25. We have 25 people.
Okay.
From different ministries: Ministry of Finance, of Economics, of Transport, Science, Agriculture, German Foreign Office, and each of us has his topics, his mechanisms, and the question is to keep people just coordinated and moving in the same direction. This is an important task. And then, of course, when the minister is coming, of course, you can propose some topics. You can propose, have a look at the LNG terminals. Maybe we should make cooperation in the area of LNG. At the moment,
liquefied
natural gas. At the moment, have a look at this or that aspect of technology, of digital. Maybe we should focus on agriculture, a topic that has been neglected for a long time, and where we realize now in the crisis we should focus much more on how to feed our people in the world if something happens
in a sustainable manner. Yes. So now, when you brought up Ukraine, and I'm sure it's on the mind of everyone here in this room. You talked a little bit about how your role has changed with the sanctions, and can you provide some insight on what's going on behind the scenes? We follow the news closely, but there's a lot we don't know, and how is Germany cooperating? And let's look at it from the German perspective. That's your specialty. Is how is Germany cooperating with the United States when it comes to the sanctions on Russia?
Yeah. First, there was when Frau Merkel, whom I worked for 3 years. When Frau Merkel was here last July, she agreed, President Biden, on a Washington declaration where she said we share the same values and we have to defend our democratic human rights, rule of law values. And this is a very big declaration, and we said, wonderful, but we did not expect that it will come so fast that we have to implement it. And then came the Russian aggression against Ukraine, and we had a session of our Bundestag, our parliament, on 27th of February.
3 days after the invasion.
Yeah, 3 days only after the invasion, where Federal Chancellor Scholz made governmental declaration. And in this declaration, he said, hello, now we are talking about our values, our democratic values, about rule of laws, about territorial integrity. All this is violated by Russian aggression and in the center of Europe, in Ukraine, and we have to react to that. And we have this declaration, which is still valid, yeah, on our values and on cooperation to defend our values. So we have to follow this up. Yeah. And then he announced a whole series of measures, yeah, on how to follow up. And he said, now this aggression is a litmus test on whether we, the West, stand with our values, whether we are able to stand united against this aggression, and whether Germany can fulfill what it has promised to its allies, to its partners, and also to the United States in the Washington Declaration. So, and then he announced very concrete measures. Only 3 days after the aggression, he announced that, in fact, he announced a turning point of German foreign and security policy. He said, this aggression in the heart of Europe, it challenges our values, and we have to stay united. We, the Western countries, have to stay united. We have to defend our values. How do we do that? First, Nord Stream 2 is history. Mm-hmm. Yeah, stop Nord Stream 2. Second, we take sanctions against Russia. And third, I will come to the sanctions and our role in that. Third, Germany will deliver weapons to crisis region Ukraine. We did not do that. We did not deliver weapons in the last 50 years, since the Second World War. 50 years, we did not deliver weapons to crisis regions. And we shifted away from that, and this is very symbolic, because up to that day, Germany said, we are under the protection of the United States in security matters, and we were quite comfortable in a rather restrictive, in a military spoken restrictive role. And he left this comfortable position of Germany and said, no, now it's the day we have to fulfill our obligations. We will deliver weapons. We will fulfill the 2% objective of NATO.
Plus 100 billion euros.
And he created a new fund of 100 billion euros to fulfill our 2% goal. And then he announced humanitarian aid. He announced that we will accept the refugees from Ukraine. He sent soldiers to the eastern border of NATO, to Romania, to Bulgaria, to the Baltic countries. And he said, now we have to agree on sanctions, and we have to closely coordinate the sanctions with the United States.
I don't think this is an exaggeration, but please correct me. These actions that Chancellor Scholz has taken have been the most significant foreign policy, security policy change in 50 years. Is that right? Is that an exaggeration?
Right. No, not at all.
And how is that being received by the German population?
Very interesting. the German population so far was had a rather pacifist stance. And also the coalition partner, the Green Party, the big coalition partner of Scholz, comes from the pacifist movement, from the basis pacifist movement. But after he announced these measures and the new shift in German foreign and security policy, there was a lot of agreement all over Germany. And we had a lot of demonstrations, sometimes 100,000, 200,000 people who supported government, who supported to take action for Ukraine, and who supported that we are united and make our fair contribution along with other allies in order to push back Russia's aggression.
And do you see? I mean, this causes a conflict with some of your previous goals. So I'm not just, since you're from Germany, I'm just asking about Germany. This isn't I'm not picking on Germany, but Germany had specific domestic goals of energy, environmentalism, foreign policy, and so now everything's kind of turned on its head with this invasion of Ukraine. We've talked about the security agreements. How is it going to impact? And you mentioned that Nord Stream 2 is dead.
Yeah.
But how are we going to compensate for the Russian natural gas? Is it through liquefied natural gas? Is it how are you going to achieve these environmental policies?
No, this is a very difficult question. Very difficult. 55% of gas we use in Germany stems from Russia. 55%. 45% of coal we use is from Russia, and 35% of oil is from Russia. We cannot cut this from one day to the other. As United
transition period. Yeah.
We need a transition period. Yeah. So, and how do we do to substitute Russian gas, coal, and oil in Germany? Well, our Minister for Economics, Robert Habeck, first is traveling around and looking where can he get fuels. So he went to Norway and checked, can you deliver us more gas? Norway is our second biggest gas deliverer after Russia.
Yes.
Same to Netherlands. He went to Qatar. Can you send LNG? He came early this year to Washington. Said, can we buy LNG to you?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. He announced that Germany will build 2 new LNG terminals in Germany, in Brunsbüttel and Wilhelmshaven in the north of Germany, because Germany does not even have LNG terminal.
Mm.
So far, when we work with LNG, we used the terminals in Belgium, Netherlands, France, and Poland. Yeah. So that's on energy. That's on gas. Coal and oil is easier to substitute for us. Yeah.
Because of your wind turbines, or
this not yet. It's easier to find other sources. No?
Okay, I see what you're saying. Yes.
Yeah. Saudi Arabia, Nigeria for oil, coal from Latin America. That's easier. So to substitute oil and gas, we can do that, Habeck says, by the end of this year. Okay. So that we don't need any more oil and coal from Russia. But we need other sources. So on gas it's more difficult. It's much more difficult. And it will take 2, 3, maybe 4 years until we can substitute gas from Russia. And now it comes, as member of the Green Party, our economics minister says we have to hurry up, to speed up extremely when we go for renewables. Renewables and more energy efficiency. And he says energy efficiency, so to save energy, there is still a huge source. There's huge possibilities just in energy efficiency. And then Scholz announced a whole program of subsidies on how households, industry, automobile companies can switch to renewable energies, and to help them to do so much faster than we thought before.
What about nuclear energy?
Look, the Green Party also comes from the movement that says no nuclear energy. Yeah, and in fact, the founding reason of the Green Party is to be pacifist and against nuclear energy. So the German government, already Frau Merkel, she decided to close all after Fukushima,
Japan, yeah.
Japan, to close all nuclear plants in Germany. And at the moment, we still have 3 nuclear plants in Germany. They deliver 6% of our energy, 6%, and they are due to be closed by the end of this year.
Is that schedule still going to be maintained?
Yes, this schedule will be maintained. We go a different way than Belgium, who just renewed and prolonged its nukes for 10 years.
And France.
And France.
Yeah.
Yeah. So we closed them down, and this has, of course, political reasons, because the Green Party would not be able to prolong, but it mainly has also technical reasons, because we told already those people, now you look for a different job by the end of the year. You cannot work in this nuclear plants anymore. But above all, you have to order the uranium. You have to order it 2-3 years beforehand. And what the uranium they have now in these plants is just enough to go until Christmas this year. Okay. Yeah, and it would be too late to order now, because it has to be processed and prepared for that.
Permitted.
So you can't get it in time.
So in addition to the natural gas,
and 6% is not so much, no? 6% of our energy mix from nuclear energy. Well, we should be able to substitute that.
Beyond natural gas, it's going to be a clear problem for all of us. But what other raw materials are at risk for you, specifically in Germany, from Russia and Ukraine? Wheat, nickel. What are some of the raw materials that are really going to impact your economy and the health of your citizens?
Yes. So the main is gas, yeah, and then coal and oil. That's really the main topic, also politically, also economically.
Okay.
And then, of course, Russia delivers, I think, 20% of nickel for world markets. That might be a problem for battery manufacturers. No? And when we say we want to switch to electric vehicles with batteries, we might run in a problem there. Same is with palladium. It's also an ingredient for batteries. Lithium. These 3 elements come from Russia. But we had talks with experts, geologists from World Bank, and they have the opinion that these metals can be substituted. And with technological process, they say you can substitute anything.
Okay.
Yeah. So we are much more relaxed on this metals that we had from Russia than on the fuels. Now, when it comes to fertilizer, to wheat, to corn, where Kazakhstan, Ukraine, Russia are, I think they deliver 20-30% of world market, yeah, in wheat at least.
At least,
30% of wheat. So I think Germany can cope with that. But there are countries in the third world who will run in grave problems because of the rising prices. And when in Germany there will be some people unemployed and some companies will break down and people get their Kurzarbeitergeld, the transition money. In Africa, people die for hunger, and whole cities do not have electricity for hours.
Yeah.
So in the third world, in the global south, the effects of the invasion, the economic effects, of course, are much more severe than for an industrialized, well-off country like Germany. One example, Bulgaria, for instance, they have 95% of their fuels, oil, coal, gas, from Russia. 95%. And the Czech Republic, they have, of course, traditional business connections from the old times with Russia, and they suffer a lot when we say no more technology, no more dual-use machine delivery to Russia. So it's extremely difficult to find a consensus also among the European member states, and it's really grateful and really a wonder that everybody around the table, NATO and around the table in Brussels, has been able to agree to this sanction.
While we're still on the topic of Ukraine, how does the German government see this conflict ending, and what would be the long-term ramifications of Russia's invasion on globalization, for example?
Of course, it's very, very difficult to forecast. Nobody thought Putin could be so cruel, so aggressive, so mean, and with such a liar, and such refusing reasonable talks or engage in reasonable negotiations. And we even don't know whether substantial negotiations are taking place. We even don't know. Of course, people say, yes, there are negotiations and they meet, but at the same time we hear from our Ukrainian friends that they are not at all prepared to cede territory to Russia. They are not prepared.
Yeah.
And how can Putin go home and say, "Oh, I didn't succeed. Thousands of Russian soldiers lost their lives. We didn't win anything." So that's why we cannot see how this conflict can end. What we do is we support Ukraine with whatever we have, just short of being party in the war, because NATO, we do not want to be direct party in the war, but we support Ukraine with whatever we can, with weapons, with food, with humanitarian aid, with money, whatever it is, but Ukraine has to decide on their negotiation position with Russia. We cannot decide for them. They have to decide, and Zelensky said his people have to decide. At the end, he will ask his people in a referendum whether they agree with the solution, whatever it is looking like. And of course, we call Scholz, our federal chancellor. He still phones Putin, as Macron does, in order to call upon him to end this aggression.
Is he taking those calls?
Yes.
Putin talks to him.
He takes his calls. He tells his lies. Putin tells the view he has on the conflict, and there's no result. And we call upon him at least to stop the war and start negotiations, whatever the outcome is.
Yeah, it's unbelievable. I mean, we're all shocked. I don't know what to say other than it's just a mess. I know that you came here to the United States with an agenda prior to Ukraine. I mean, Germany has assumed the presidency of the G7 as of beginning of this year. You had specific goals as being the presidency of G7, they are to, let me read this off, progress towards an equitable world, and you wanted to address sustainability, economic stability, healthy lives, a better future, and a stronger together. Can you elaborate on the G7 goals?
Yes.
And does this still exist? Is it even relevant,
Right.
given what we're seeing today?
Yes, it's our program still exists, and we still pursue it. And it is a wonderful program. We think it's a wonderful and very substantial program. And one of the strong points, we thought to overcome the Corona crisis, the COVID crisis, will our main focus and enhance growth in our countries, enhance growth also in the global south, bring the vaccines to the global south in form of development aid. We thought that this is the first measure. The second measure, and that is still ongoing. That is really ongoing. Is the energy climate topic. And we want definitely to keep the climate below 1.5%, as it has been decided in Paris and in Glasgow. And we work closely together with the G7 partners, also with the United States, on how to achieve that. On how to achieve it and how to shift to renewables. How to, in fact, the topics we just mentioned, how to shift to renewables, how to save energy, how to increase efficiency of the energy we use, and also there we look to the global south, because we think seven rich Western countries, we cannot only care about ourselves. We are living in a whole world, and we also have to look to the global south. And what we're doing in the energy climate topic is, we try to give incentives to our companies, to our private households, to save energy and to switch to renewables. But this should not be this should not lead to unfair competition by, let's say, Chinese steel or Russian steel. Who do not have the same standards. So that's why we proposed a climate club, maybe starting with the G7 or the NATO countries, or United States, the Americas, and together with EU, a climate club where we say we fulfill certain standards concerning climate change for our companies. This is a certain amount of burden we accept for our companies, but we do not want that competitors from outside, they come in and take away our market shares, because we have this financial burden. So that's the essence of a climate club. So let's go forward. We have to go forward. We have to advance in climate protection within this club. And whenever we import Chinese steel, they should pay a certain import duty, which compensates that they have lower costs because they don't care about climate.
Gotcha.
This is just one example. No? So and then we are willing to finance climate measures in the global south. And in Glasgow, they put together $1 billion per year starting 2023, which will be invested in climate projects in the global south. And this can be very small photovoltaic measures, let's say to run a well to get fresh water. Yeah. Really, we move away from the big, huge projects and go for small projects that are easy to handle, easy to maintain, and help people in a small area. And then we want to invest in hydrogen. The global south has a lot of sun. They can well produce hydrogen in an ecological way, but we need the infrastructure. We need we need pipelines. We need vessels to transport the hydrogen. So that's how we want to care about, also to look at the global south and among the G7.
Let's shift from the global south to East Germany. We're 32 years past the Treaty for Unification, August 1990. How are things going? Do you feel like the East is catching up with the West? Is the unification been relatively smooth, or what lessons have you learned? What progress still remains?
Yeah. Look, nobody thought it will take so much time.
And money.
And money.
Yeah.
Whole generation and money, no, to get more or less same standards. And even today, sometimes you meet the people from the East, and they have a kind of inferior complex, because they come from the poor East, which was always considered as the poor small brother of the rich Western Germans. Yeah. So, but I think we overcome it, and I have two examples to show that really we overcome the division. The first is the new Tesla plant in Brandenburg, near Berlin.
Just this week, right?
Just this week,
yes.
Tesla delivered the first cars to the consumers, Tesla consumers, and Elon Musk was there.
Yes.
He spoke in German. And then he twittered "Danke Deutschland." So it seems he's quite happy, and this is a huge plant. At the moment there are I think 3,000 people working, and this will increase to 12,000. There will still be a battery plant there, and we are extremely proud and happy with this investment. And then the second is Magdeburg. It's a little bit more Magdeburg,
okay.
Sachsen-Anhalt, little bit more south than Berlin, Brandenburg. And Pat Gelsinger, the head of Intel, announced that he will invest $17 billion in a chip plant in Magdeburg. And that's, of course, a huge investment. That's also a sign that Germany will be a technology place for technology, for future-oriented technology. And Dresden and Leipzig, they are already developing in this direction. We have huge car plants in Leipzig. We have also Infineon, German chip maker, who is investing in chip factories in Dresden. So Dresden and the whole East, I think, they are starting off towards, in fact, the new technologies.
Good.
And that's the way to go.
Well, we're going to run out of time here, so I want to leave some time for questions and answers. But real quickly, you've been in our country 1 year. What has impressed you or surprised you about your stay in the United States?
First, the friendliness of the people. The openness and the friendliness of the people. Be it in the supermarket, be it on the streets, and in public transport. You have people who explain to you how to get the metro ticket. It's extremely complicated to buy a metro ticket in Washington. Don't imagine,
Yes.
It's extremely complicated. And there is the automatic machine, and there's one person standing there to explain you how to use them. And of course, this kind of meetings, so open. I never expected, to go to in the middle of the country. I don't know if American comes to lands in the middle of Germany and he is received so pleasantly as my wife and me are received here. So I think that's our first experience. And then second, that things Americans make things work. It works, and then they are extremely flexible. We don't know that. Also, the bureaucracy, there is bureaucracy, but a flexible bureaucracy. And so at the end, things work. And we had this experience when our son attended an American high school, and he came with his German diploma and his what he did in Germany. And there were people at the high school who checked it, who helped us, and he's now following his courses, and then we realized, oh no, this course is not the right one. He has to shift to another one. Everything is possible, and I wish in Germany they would be so flexible.
Yeah, great. Well, thank you very much. We have some time for some questions and questions? Questions we might have answers, I don't know.
Thirsty people here.
Okay, yes. Any burning questions? Yes, sir.
Yeah, I have a question on, I guess, the reaction of the German population to the sanctions. And can you maybe give us some sense, what were they paying for gasoline 2 months ago?
Yeah.
Because I have the impression it's a lot higher than what Americans are complaining about now.
Yeah.
And I guess it may be not just the pre-Ukraine gas prices or heating a home. I mean, what would it cost to heat a home of 200 square meters? Give me some sense, because I have a feeling that even pre-Ukraine, Germans were paying a lot more to heat their homes and to drive than we're complaining about now.
There you have to ask my wife, I think.
No, I think 1 year ago when we tank our cars, I think the 1 gallon gasoline costed $3. 3 euro. One euro.
1 liter.
3 euro?
So 3 euro. No, 1 euro per liter.
Liter.
Yes, so which means 3 euro per gallon.
Yep.
Yeah. And now we are paying 2.7, 2.8 per liter, which multiplied by 3, then it's going to be 9 euro per gallon.
Well,
That's the current price.
Gasoline
Yes.
cost in Germany at the moment costs $8-9
Yes, euro per gallon.
per gallon.
Yes. So that's the price.
It's much more than here. Yeah.
And on heating your home with natural gas?
Okay, so that's very difficult to compare because last year we were 5 persons at home. At that time, I think average we have around 200 euro per month. So it's average 2,400 euro per year.
Per year. Yeah.
So
But
that's not bad.
We have a good house.
We have a good house,
We have very
and we have efficient heating.
yes.
Yeah, gas heatings. They are quite efficient. Yeah.
The German houses are very good isolated. So from the windows, from the walls, and from the whole complex are very thickly protected from the cold. And the heating system, we are not with the air. We are with kinds of water. The kind of
Water boiler.
yes,
Radiant.
yes,
Radiant.
yes, and
Yeah.
it's very effective. So it keeps the heat. So normally, the good efficient house is expected to pay 200 euro per month average.
So are Germans complaining about the higher costs?
Yes, they're complaining about higher costs. Yes, they're complaining about the higher gasoline cost.
Yes.
And of course, they are complaining about the higher heating costs, and they are compensated. The German government took social measures. Yeah, there were a lot of ideas floating. The one idea of the FDP was just cut the tax that is on each gallon of gasoline. Just cut it, so everybody will benefit of it. But the Social Democrats, they say no. This will cost too much money. We will compensate the poor people and those who use the car to go to work and have more than 20 kilometers to drive. Those people we will compensate, but not everybody. We don't have money for everybody. Yeah, and you have a huge Mercedes, BMW, and you need a lot of gasoline. So this is not the right incentive to subsidize their gasoline. Yeah? And so that's why it's much more under a social measure, these compensations, than for everybody. Same for the heating. It's rather a social measure for people who are unemployed or people who anyway are subsidized by our social system. They get some compensation for their higher heating costs. Sir?
Yeah, so far the Western Alliance has held up pretty well. In fact, it's come together in an amazingly unified way. Now, as this prolongs, and if there isn't a quick resolution, do you see that alliance fraying a little bit? Because the United States is so self-sufficient that it can actually withstand, and it can be very punitive in terms of the, what it does with Russia in a much to a greater extent than Europe.
Right.
So it's all fine. It's 3 weeks or 4 weeks into the war. But if there's no resolution in a couple of months, will some of this alliance start to fray? Because the Europeans are feeling the pain, just as we discussed in terms of the gas prices.
Yeah.
So what's your thought? That will we be united? Because one of the things that Putin may be thinking is, hey, you know what? They are united now, but let's just keep prolonging this, and there will be lines fraying here.
Yeah.
What do you think about it?
Yeah. Look, this is a point which has played a huge role in the arguments of Chancellor Scholz, why he cannot follow United States on an import ban on Russian gas and coal. Scholz said, whatever we do, it must be sustainable. How long the crisis takes, it must be sustainable. We cannot take some measures now, and then in 3 months or in 6 months, we realize, it's hurting us. No? Okay, we come back and buy again and trade again with Russia. This would be really lamentable. Yeah. And then his conclusion was, so better don't go for the extreme sanctions now, but take sanctions that are sustainable. And I think among us Europeans, we agreed on this sanction level we have now at the moment. We agreed that we should wait the effects for them before we increase again. Yeah. And that's why the European Council did not decide on increasing sanctions. There were reasons to increase sanctions. No? These dramatic photos we see every day in the front page of our newspapers give enough reasons to increase the sanctions. But we did not do it. Let's wait and see for the effects, and let's keep the sanctions in a way that they are sustainable. And when Bulgaria complains, I cannot anymore, no? I'm sure some rich countries are prepared to deliver them energy and to help them out.
We're bumping up against 7 o'clock, and I want to be respectful of everyone's time. And Hardy, you will stick around a little bit?
Yes, of course.
Okay. So, Pierce, you want to wrap things up for us?
I do. Just take a minute. 2.5 minutes. There are two people, before I go too much further, and it was so cool that you tapped into Lynn. If it weren't for my wife Sue here, none of this would be. I would be the father of 6. She did all the interior decorating of the building our family built. I guess it's 5 years now. She greeted everyone at the door. She always makes sure things happen. I thought it was just so neat when you turned to Lynn and said, well, what is the cost of this? We had delivered this morning a Sub-Zero refrigerator that we ordered last June. The first one lasted 34 years. And whatever was holding it up was something with some epoxy in China or whatever. And we're ready to write the check. For this thing fully installed now, this is a refrigerator with a freezer. Fully installed, it's about $15,000.
Wow.
So, I mean, I'm sure 35 years ago we paid maybe $2,000 or $3,000 with that. Holy cow, what a different world we're living in. We can't get the parts, we can't get the delivery, and when they come, you're so thankful. But, yeah. That's why we depend on you women. So, thank you, Dennis. Great job. You truly bring. I can see. I mean, just the way you two were able to chat and ask questions. Tom's question was great. Your question was great. But it really it brings together this bond we have of freedom. And not just the freedom, it's the thought, the action, is the ability to talk with one another. And it's going to be a tough road with this Ukrainian mess. But for all the bumps and the wars, as you know, in Civil War, it's the Germans who actually came here and armed. They didn't even speak English, and they took on the South. It goes way back, the relationship between Germany and St. Louis, and it's strong. It's a wonderful bond, and gee, it's just neat that you're here. So I encourage you, all of you, to stay, sample some of our wonderful German fare. And here's another man I want to thank. He actually lived in Germany for 2 years and more. Sue Fitzgerald's husband, Tom. And he's the one who made sure this was all laid out, the sausage, and he wanted to make sure the German bill of fare was just right. So Tom would love to meet you later on.
Yes.
Yeah. So traditional German meats, and then we have a friend down the street, John Parker, and he's chosen some wines. Some are from Germany, and some are German wines, German companies who've opened wineries in New York and in Missouri. So we have some Missouri grape wines. We have reds. We have rosé. I think the rosé may be from Missouri. So sample and enjoy. We're going to have wonderful beer. It's called Schlafly beer.
Yeah. Good, yeah.
And so we have many distinguished guests. I could introduce, but you need to all mingle, and I think when things start pouring, that we might be able to do such. And I also want to thanks very much to the Powers Insurance and Risk Management for providing the venue. Our IT man, Drew, has stayed. He's the one who's kept all this going. I have to tell you, he doesn't dress like that every day. So I've got this incredible family, wife, staff, 3 of my 6 children in the business, and it's all because of them that we're here. I want you to enjoy the view of the arch. You should look right now. Hardy, it's incredible.
Yeah.
And if you get your pour and you have a little food, you can walk out and look out. And then just immediately to the left, there's a balcony with a terrific view. I think it's still going to be warm enough. So 2 little things, too. We're going to have, it's going to be a Zoom. We're going to have 5 really neat women. The Zoom is going to be with Her Excellency, the Ambassador of Saudi Arabia. And she wants to focus on women's things and women's sports. And we're going to set up in our suite upstairs to where you have what do you call it, a webinar? Susan Lohr's going to moderate it, yeah. So tune in think about tuning in by Zoom to do that. The invitations have been out. Which reminds me, some of you are not members and you don't know a whole lot about us. We're rewriting the website, but it's pretty current. If you take your telephone and you hit one of these QRs right here, it'll take you to our website, and you can study it, and you can say, I really want to make a donation. I really want to be a member, as an individual or corporate. So we invite you to do that. We've been around since 1948, and it's because of people like you that we can do it. We're totally not for profit. So this was terrific. Enjoy, and I'm honored that you're here.
Thank you.
There's one more little thing. I wear a bow tie.
Oh.
You wear fulon?
What?
You generally wear